corn farmers have an amazing story to tell. They're helping meet our demands for feed, fuel, and fiber, while continually implementing new sustainable methods of doing so. Today's farmers produce more than ever. Yet studies show that since 1980, growers of grain corn in the U.S. have decreased land use per bushel by about 30%, energy per bushel by about 45%, water per bushel by more than 50%, soil erosion per bushel by nearly 70%, and greenhouse gas emissions per bushel by about 35%. Data shows decreases in other inputs too, such as usage of various pesticides. Also, because the crop itself stores carbon, each acre of corn removes 8 tons of greenhouse gas from the atmosphere, more than one vehicle produces annually. And still, the Colorado Corn Administrative Committee, a farmer-driven organization that's funded by a 1 penny per bushel assessment, invests hundreds of thousands of dollars to continue this momentum. With research projects examining irrigation efficiency, water quality, and conservation tillage practices. There's more to this success story though, like the innovative ways in which grain corn is used. How about biofuels? To help gasoline burn cleaner, ethanol is now blended in about 97% of the U.S. gas supply, and credited with lowering CO2 equivalent greenhouse gas emissions from transportation by more than 40 million metric tons annually, equal to removing nearly 9 million cars from the road. In addition, grain corn is replacing petroleum-based products in many industrial uses, from biodegradable plastic containers to carpet fibers to the soles of shoes, making them compostable, renewable, and better for the environment. It's easy to see why Colorado farmers are proud to produce about 150 million bushels of corn each year. They're helping fuel our vehicles and feed our local livestock, and playing a big role in a sustainable future.
A sweeping bill that impacts everything from how food is grown to how food stamps are doled out is headed for a showdown in Congress. The $867 billion farm bill passed the U.S. Senate tonight. Political specialist Sean Boyd takes us to Weld County, where one farmer is watching the debate closely.
Since Sunday, these leaves would have been up here.
Dave Eckert's farm in LaSalle, one of those hard hit by Sunday's hailstorm.
We're obviously going to have a yield effect. We don't know what that is.
But he says without federal crop insurance, damage like this would devastate the 3,300-acre farm and impact the state's economy. Agriculture, a $40 billion a year industry in Colorado that employs more than 170,000 people. Some congressional Democrats want to means test crop insurance.
For us to lose that crop insurance affects people down the line. Fertilizer, aerial application, equipment dealers.
And ultimately, consumers. The uncertainty over the farm bill comes as commodity prices on crops like corn, soybeans, and wheat tumble, and as trade tensions between the U.S. and China, the largest buyer of U.S. soybeans, increase in response to President Trump's tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum. Colorado's U.S. Senator Michael Bennet sits on the Agriculture Committee and says farmers need certainty now more than ever.
This is a tough time with commodity prices the way they are and facing serious questions about retaliation on trade. What our farmers and ranchers need is a 5-year farm bill.
The consumer has a vested interest in production of food and fiber in this country. And if you don't take care of it, you find yourself beholden to another country to deliver you the food that you eat. I don't think that's a situation that any of us want to be in.
In LaSalle, Sean Boyd covering Colorado First.
Well, among the provisions in the Senate Farm Bill is an amendment by Senator Bennett and Senator Cory Gardner that legalizes hemp. The House passed its own version of the Farm Bill last week. It imposes a controversial work requirement for some food stamp recipients. The two bills are now headed to a conference committee.
$317 million people, 212 million drivers. This is America. But America has been taken for a ride.
There's been a monopoly on the fuel system in this country.
The oil companies invented the pump. They control it.
There is no competition.
You gotta choose. Do you want to go to the movies with your kids or do you want to buy gas?
It hurts. You have the ability to stop using oil right now.
So here we stand. You got God with love in the hand.
All cars run equally well on methanol, ethanol, or gasoline.
The blood, sweat, and tears.
The United States started building flex fuel cars in 1994. There are millions of cars on the road that are flex fuel. The only way you knew you had a flex fuel car is that your gas cap was yellow.
What's the gas station of the future going to look like? It's going to look a lot different than today's. One of the reasons is look at natural gas coming along.
It's cleaner, it's abundant right here in America. It's American.
Until we have a moment of truth with ourselves, this country is destined to not only be addicted to oil, but addicted to all the terrible trappings that come with oil.
What's going to break the monopoly at the pump is entrepreneurs who build alternative distribution.
Spend about $100 a day in gas, now spending about $20.
We're under the impression that you have to change a ton of parts to make this run off of alcohol fuels. That is not true.
It's possible to create compelling, affordable electric cars.
That's the best part about being an American. We don't like it, we'll change it. The technology out there, the know-how is out there. We are going to be able to do this on our own.
When I look to the future, this is what I see. My family, my children, my grandchildren, they are what motivate me to work my farm with the care and attention to detail that will leave the land better than I found it. And I'm not alone in this. I believe the agriculture community is dedicated to making the land, the environment, and our way of life better. Whether it's through sound conservation practices, using the latest technologies, or teaching our children why we do what we do, I am just one of many farmers dedicated to doing the right thing. As a child growing up in a rural Midwestern community, I never imagined the impact agriculture would have on the future of our society. But my perspective has changed. And now I see how the profession that I have devoted my life to impacts the world. And I want to share with you a story of where agriculture has been, where we are today, and where we are going. In the 1890s, my great-grandfather had no idea what this plant was. Do you? It's the largest ag export from the United States. It's a key ingredient in many food products. It's a soybean. And the first soybeans that were ever grown on my farm, my family's farm, was after a devastating hail crop in the 1920s, which destroyed my grandfather's corn crop. He had no other choice. He had to do something. Soybeans were planted not for the oil and the meal that I use them for today, but as a high-protein forage to sustain his livestock through the long, cold winter. And what he found when planting the corn following the soy was that the soil was much easier to work, the young seedlings were much healthier. Like others, my grandfather discovered a basic scientific principle here. Soybeans capture nitrogen from the air, they transfer it to the soil, and allow the next following year's crop to thrive. Mother Nature provides many sustainable processes such as this that are used today, and crop rotation is just one of them. My grandfather's grandfather and his young bride came to Iowa in the 1850s with a dream to own land and to raise a family. Imagine loading your worldly possessions in a high-wheeled wooden wagon drawn by 2 horses with a milk cow in tow, and leave everything you know to start a new life in a raw, open prairie. My family's farm has endured, despite struggles to provide enough food, or when Mother Nature devastated the crops with the blazing hot summers, or when livestock suffered through the brutally cold winters. Changing climate has been a way of life for generations. But out of these adversities came a resilience often only found in agriculture. Jump forward 5 generations, and you find me working the same land purchased in 1890. I owe my passion for my profession to my father. He was an agricultural giant in my eyes. He's the reason I've been able to not only endure, but improve the way I farm. He was a fiercely independent man, short in stature, but tall in character. Hard work was his hobby, and he finished what he started, regardless of the effort required. His belief in hard work is a principle I still live by today and teach my children and grandchildren. A career of farming is not for everyone, and my parents' 9 grandchildren, only one chose this path, my son. And for the last 10 years, I've had the privilege of working alongside my son and his young family who live in the 100-year-old house that my great-grandfather built. It takes many hands across generations to sustain a rich farming history with deep roots. Today, the U.S. farmer represents only 1% of this country's population, but we are growing nearly half of the world's soybeans. Let me repeat that. 1% of this country's population is growing nearly half of the world's soybeans. Now, there are differing points of view on how to farm, but I'm certain that along with the unyielding perseverance for defined skills that have been honed through generations, that science and technology have become the frontline tools in our efforts towards continuous improvement. Being profitable is required, but without a dedication to improving the land, the water, and the air, the next generation could be lost. In my 40 years of farming, the size of my farm has grown considerably. Science and technology has led that charge for change, not only with the machines that I use, but the seeds that I plant. Modern innovations have given us the ability to plant and harvest in a timely fashion. We're able to utilize variable rate technology using global positioning satellites where I can place my seed within an inch, my fertilizers within that zone as well. Computers are as much a part of the American modern farm as the harness was to granddad's horses. I've increased my production 3 to 4 times that of my grandfather, while reducing my fertilizer workload and other inputs by half on the very same land. And through good record keeping and evaluation of all my practices, I have been able to set my baselines as key performance indicators in my dedicated efforts towards continuous improvement. Some may resist the direction of modern agriculture for the romantic notions of the past, but I've witnessed firsthand this transition, and I'm a testament to the responsible outcomes. My grandfather, he saw white houses peppered black with soil after windstorms due to soil erosion, and today I maintain that soil on my fields by using minimal tillage, cover crops, and a whole long list of other conservation practices. The modern tools that I and the other 2.1 million farmers in the U.S. use today are allies in our efforts to produce a bountiful harvest while protecting our land and our environment for future generations. Using science to provide assurances to the American consumer, I've worked on a first-of-its-kind effort with sustainability, with soy. That very same soybean, I might add, that my grandfather first planted. What will the future look like? Not just soy, but it will also include other crops that produce more, with less water, with less input, and will adapt to changing climate conditions. Though our way of life has similarities with wonderful memories of a simpler time, I was commissioned by my parents to be socially and economically responsible. And just as I've had to embrace changing perspectives, I also recognize that the transition has begun on my farm. My story of hands across generations runs deep, deep with tradition, but carries on with a willingness to innovate as I look towards a brighter future. Thank you.
The survival of our species has always depended on advances in agriculture.
Climate change is going to scramble this how are we going to feed the world debate.
This is all about companies.
This is about money. This is about power.
It's much easier to sow fear than it is science.
If you don't have food, then you're going to steal, you're going to kill someone.
So, how do we make the most informed decisions about how we feed ourselves?
The three most terrifying letters in the English language are GMO.
I wondered how many people really know what they are.
I don't know.
I know it's bad.
Genetic engineering is a modern form of breeding.
The goal is to add useful traits into food.
I am concerned about some of the health issues related to GMOs.
More colds, autism, susceptibility to hepatitis, cancer, HIV.
There's absolutely no proof to a health hazard.
Never trust one opinion. You look at the consensus of experts.
I don't think that genetically modified organisms are dangerous.
You're either going to be GMO or you're going to be organic. They cannot coexist.
If this is an organic planet we're going towards, you would see all the rainforest destroyed just to feed the current population.
This is something I'm going to look into.
Some people can say wild and crazy things.
I trust the social media more than most medical doctors, more than the CDC, more than the FDA, more than the EPA. I don't need a scientific study.
Things like that.
We humans are wired to make our minds up and that's it.
We make decisions based on our gut. When was the last time you changed your mind?
Our intentions were honorable. We were trying to protect the future of the planet and the health of our children. It begs the question, how do you know that GMOs are the enemy? What if we got it wrong?
The good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it. You see, that's the...